Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Joining me for not the very typical Tuesday night record, Wednesday release episode where we break down all things football and all things in the world of sports, because we got another guest with us on the Wednesday episode, and we have some news to talk about with Steve Nash being out as the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. So joining me on today's episode, none other than Pat Boyle. Pat, what's up, my guy?
Pete, we got a lot of news to break down. We're 2 weeks into hoops. We are 9 weeks into the NFL. We got college basketball around the corner. Dude, it's a good time to be alive right now, I'll tell you that much. And we got a Drake and a 21 Savage album coming out soon. So
wow. You just hurt my brain when you said college basketball. Honestly, I don't know if you guys are watching on YouTube, you saw me just have like a spaz attack. That's because I can't mentally wrap my head around college hoops being on yet for more things for me to try to watch and keep up with. It's already too overwhelming. Also here, though, to talk all things basketball, Nets, football, everything. Cody O'Connor back again. What's up, guy?
Pat, you almost stole my thunder there. Last time I came on, I told you it's one of the best times in the sports calendar, and it's living right up to the hype. We're starting with basketball. I feel like I'm getting a promotion. I get to come in, talk football with you guys. Couldn't be more excited. It's a great time of the year. Like you said, Pat, what a time to be alive.
If all jobs promoted as quickly as Subway Sports Talk, the world would be a better place, you know? Just a couple good outings by you, and you got bumped from, the AAA bullpen right up to the major league. You're our spot starter now, shut down guy in the 7th, 8th. He can go 3 innings if he has to. You're just pulling them all out, all the tricks. And baseball is also happening. In the midst of all those things we mentioned before, the Phillies are about to take a 2-1 lead on the Houston Astros, which makes about 92% of the country happy, I'd say. Is that fair? Fair number? What do you think about that?
Yeah, but I think we're all in the 8.
Is that honestly? Wait, yeah, I think of the people in this world who are pro Astros, or at least like not super anti Astros, we might be in that percent. Are we all in that? Pat, are you in that percentage?
I'm rooting for Philly in this one.
But are you team like F the Astros?
Like
at this point in time, obviously, like when they actually cheated, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at this point, they're easy to hate. So, yeah, I'd say fuck them.
I find teams that are easy to hate sometimes easy to get behind, because there's nothing better than when everybody's like, oh, fuck this team. I hate this. They suck. Oh, scumbags. For me to be like, nah, you know what? Alex Bregman, kind of dope.
Pete, you got your classic team dynasty, pendulum and how it swings. Right. So when a team starts to first become a dynasty, they're new. You love them. You root for them. Then they win a second title in like the span of 4 or 5 years. And you're like, okay, that's enough. Give us somebody else. Then they win a third, or at least in the Astros case, they're in a third. So at that point, and especially like Golden State Warriors, when LeBron went to Miami, the Yankee empire of the early 2000s, late 90s, once you win 3, people start to get sick of you. And then if you win a fourth, you get to a fourth, then it's almost like so many people hate them. And it's like, all right, well, you got to admire the beauty. You got to admire the greatness to a certain degree. I feel like I got there with Golden State after KD left. Maybe that was mostly the reason, but I can see why people, like, how you just said, would get there with Houston now.
100%. The first year after the cheating scandal, when they were still good, I wanted them to win just because I thought it would be funny. Honestly, that was really the reason. I remember
you saying that.
Yeah, I was like, I just kind of like chaos. I like when there's chaos in baseball because people talk about it. And most of the time, people don't talk about it. People are talking about it right now because the Astros are in it, frankly, right? The Phillies are a great story. If they were playing some regular ass team that's not the Astros and not the Yankees, like not some larger than average team, like if they're playing the Twins or some team of that ilk, no one cares. Everyone's like, oh, Philly's cool. That's fun. Bryce Harper. Yeah. And it's over, gone. Right now, there's actually a chance for them to have some sort of like electricity in this season, in this series. And it's because people hate the Astros. You need hate to make leagues exciting. That's why when everyone said, oh, the Warriors and Cavs, like, I'm over it, blah, blah, blah. No, you weren't. People just lied to themselves constantly with that stuff because the numbers, the proof's in the pudding. The numbers tell the whole story. the most watched finals in such a long time before and after. And everybody, no matter what, either was a Steph and Warriors guy or a KD hater or a LeBron guy or a LeBron hater. Everybody was on a side. And what you don't want in sports is people to just be like, I'm just happy to be here, right? Like, not most sports can't live off that. The NFL is really the only sport that can live off that because it is the king sport. It is the best sport in the world. Sundays are holy for a reason. Cody, what do you think about that topic? Anything to add?
I mean, look, I've been over the Astros scandal for a while, especially when they keep making it back. Like, they're proving that they're just a good team, good organization, maybe the best run in baseball right now. But we were talking pre-show, like, it's about the fans you have in your life. That's where you end up rooting for or against. And, like, quick brag here, but I've got a lot of friends from the Philly area, from college and whatnot. And so all of them together, I can't let them have this happiness while I'm sitting here miserable about the Mets. They can't have that over me. And they're going to get it. Like, it does feel like a team of destiny. So I'm rooting against them. However, I've been responsibly betting them. And so I'm kind of emotionally hedging with my money there. So.
And Cody and Pete, I know you guys don't need me to tell you that you had the Braves in 21. You had the Nats in 19. You might have the Phillies in 22.
You're right, Pat. You didn't need to tell me that.
Mm-hmm. I know. I didn't need to tell you. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of how much I'm hearing that. And so I just wanted to make sure you've heard it at some point here over the last couple of weeks now. And then who knows? I mean, maybe Jeter finally figures out that he wants to win with the Marlins, and maybe they win it next year. I mean, that would be pretty funny.
That would be funny. That was not where I expected you to go, but I do have a spin zone take for you, Pat. Here's my spin zone. All Yankee fans want to say all the time is, we're in the best division in baseball. Well, we play this hard schedule because our division's so hard. I don't want to hear it when our division has the rings in the last 5 years, bro. We got it. We got the hardware. We are out here. We had the most top tier teams in the league this year in the NL East. I don't care that the worst team in the AL East had a better record than the worst team in our division, but the Mets, Braves, and Phillies were all awesome. Can't say that about the AL East. I'm saying, listen, it's hard out here in the best division in baseball. It's not going to be easy. But guess what? When the Mets win theirs in 2 years, we're going to say without a doubt that the NL East is the best division in baseball. And these Yankee fans won't have any more backings because the Rays always beat them.
That was a beautiful way to kind of compose an excuse there. Oh, the division's just so good, man. That's why the Mets haven't won. It's the division.
So you're not buying my spin zone there?
No, not really. I mean, it is impressive. Like, you got to look at it. Like, I don't know. I feel like we go by divisions on a year-on-year basis. At least the thing I think about most when you talk about divisions is football. I feel like that sets itself apart just a little bit more than baseball. And the fact there's so much parity in football, I feel like year to year, I don't know, the NFC East was so terrible, and now all of a sudden it's great. But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like in baseball it's a little bit harder to kind of clump teams together in their divisions and, rank them or talk about them as a group.
Yeah, I agree. But I hate when Yankee fans we play in the hardest division of baseball. Like, your record's not even that impressive. I'm just like, shut up. We have more World Series in the last couple of years. Now I'm rooting for the Phillies all of a sudden. Now I spin zoned myself into oblivion. Anyways, we got other stuff to talk about. Let's talk about Steve Nash and the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, Steve Nash now out as head coach in Brooklyn. We also are going to touch on a couple other NBA hot items that we want to touch on very quickly before we hammer home all the NFL stuff we have to touch on, including all the big moves from the trade deadline, what that means for those teams, the teams around them, as Pat just mentioned, in division stuff. Some of these teams now, like the Dolphins, for example, or the Ravens, for example, have they separated themselves within their division, within their conferences to assure themselves a better road to the playoffs? We will discuss all of that, as well as a quick recap on our picks, which shout out to the boys. Combined 11-4 the first week of the year, where all three of us had winning weeks. 4-1 for myself, 4-1 for Mark Shanlugan, 3-2 for Pat Boyle, who had a 4-1 just 2 weeks ago. Don't let the boys get hot. Listen, 49-71 is not a record to write home about. We know this. We're aware. But guess what? We're climbing in the right direction. Week 9, picks coming later in the week. So now it's time to talk about the Brooklyn Nets, talk about Steve Nash and the search for a head coach here in Brooklyn. They also lost to the Bulls after Zach LaVine exploded on Tuesday night. So, Cody, I want to go to you first, just because I feel like you've been leading a lot of the discussion about the Nets with Shen in our group chat here. And before we let Pat kind of go off on it, what was your reaction to this firing? I felt maybe it was like shocking, because it's always shocking, but not surprising in the least. So what did you feel when you saw the news, knowing it could happen any day, but never knowing when it actually would happen?
Yeah, and it's funny. It came off a win, actually. But maybe they decided, hey, like, we look this close to the Pacers, maybe something's got to change. It feels like you said, it's been a long time coming. That's how I felt. Like, it's about time. They've been running out the same thing for a year plus. I feel like we've had this discussion. I don't know if it's been all of us or if it was like me and Pat, but I've been kind of asking for Steve Nash's job for over a year now, because this team has completely underperformed, underachieved their expectation. They're way too talented to be this middle of the pack. Last year they had the play in for their lives, and then they get swept in Boston. And it's just a team that, to me, has done every single small thing wrong for a year plus. All of the little things, just simple stuff, boxing out, defensive rotations, something like just setting a screen and having your feet set. It feels like they do all of those things wrong, and they add up and they add up and they add up. And where else do you look but your coaching staff? They're not an under-talented team. You have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Your expectation is, we're looking to compete for a championship. That's what the Nets' expectation was. And we were on, this is, a throwback, because I feel like you haven't done it in a while, Pat, but I came on Boyle and Shen after they demolished the Bucks in game 2 of round 2 and looked like an unstoppable team before that injury. And since that time, seemingly since I, came on and sang their praises, they have been just a dumpster fire. Pat, you've been all over this. I know you're ready to just kind of kill them right now. I think they had to make the move. I'm glad they did. I don't know it fixes everything, but God, you had to try something. You can't just keep running this out the same way anymore.
No, you couldn't have, man. And I don't know. I do take a lot of pleasure in kind of like watching this roller coaster go off the tracks here for the last 3 years. I mean, I say it again and again. This comes back to, this was Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving's bed that they made, and they're going to have to sleep in it until, for better or for worse, and as bad as this gets, there's going to be a breaking point where, and there was a breaking point, obviously. The height of it was this past summer when Kevin Durant has to be traded, and Kyrie Irving re-signs, you think all is well, and then KD literally 2 days later says, you know what, no, I want out, and then said, fire Steve Nash and fire the GM, Sean Marks, or I'm gone. And Joe Tsai said, yeah, how about you go fuck yourself? So, and we watched how that played out all summer long. And so this is their decision. They wanted Steve Nash as a coach, so he was expendable from the start, which is unfortunate, because I like Steve, and he's a Hall of Fame point guard. He's one of the best to ever do it. And I'll talk more about him in just a second, but he was always expendable. This was their choice. You had the clown-assery quote from Kyrie Irving. Oh, sometimes I'll be coach, KD will be coach. That is a fucking head coach in the NBA. Are you really serious with that statement? And from there on out, Kyrie Irving has continued to say stupid and more stupid things. We've seen it again here in the last week now. So I didn't get a great vibe from it from the start. And the fact that they also got rid of Kenny Atkinson, who I thought was a tremendous head coach, and we'll see if he gets another head coaching spot very soon here. But I just hated that they tore it all down. It was like blood money for Sean Marks, and Joe Tsai was like, hey, if we get Kevin Durant, we can just fucking start rolling heads. It doesn't matter what's going to happen. We've got Kevin Durant. Now we got Kyrie Irving. We'll put it together somehow. We'll win a title. And it's not that easy. And I love how, like, last year's finals, Golden State, a homegrown team. They've been bred. They've been built through the draft. And Boston now, too. I just love that was the final that we got, because it showed you, it kind of hit back against the super team aspect. And I know some people think Golden State's a super team. When you draft your entire roster, it's not a super team. When they got Kevin Durant, they were. And that's why I hated that move. But outside of that, winning the title again last year, they proved that you don't need to do that. So I just hated everything about the Nets, trading Jarrett Allen, trading Karis LeVert. So, again, this was a long time coming. And in terms of Steve Nash, the guy never had any head coaching experience. So I didn't like the move from the start. And I feel for him because he's had to be the ringleader for this circus now for the last 2-3 seasons. I hope Steve can get another job soon. I mean, look how long it took Jason Kidd to be a good coach in the NBA, right? I feel like every coach he teamed, he got fired from. They were terrible. They were underperformed. And all of a sudden last year, boom, he popped with Luka and the Mavs. So you give Steve maybe, 5-6 years as an assistant. I don't even think it takes that long, maybe a couple. He could be a really good head coach because he knows the game. He's smart. I feel like point guards are naturally good coaches. Maybe I'm biased for thinking that. But yeah, I mean, to sum this all up, I just never liked any single move they've made. And then to get rid of Harden as well after you bring him in, it felt like this was never going to work out with Steve Nash. And he's the scapegoat right now for the start of this season.
It's very weird to think about all the things you guys just laid out because of the varying level of failure and success they had on like a week-to-week basis. If you really think about it, right? Like Cody mentioned that series against the Bucks, Kevin Durant's big toe on the line and they don't win that series, right? Like if that toe is a couple inches back and they win that series, where does this conversation go? Where does the next season go? Last year, before Kevin Durant got hurt, this team was the 1 seed, right? So if you wanted to play the game and say, it's really not Nash's fault, he's been dealt a horrible hand, you can totally play that game. But with all the other stuff that went on that was negative, I look at the GM, I look at the owner, and Sean Marks basically said it in his press conference. He was like, I'm not going to talk about all that stuff because I don't think Steve Nash will want me to because he's a competitor and he don't want to hear it right now. It's like, but there were a lot of things that did not go well from our end and from all ends, right? So if this was a normal team, a normal situation, I think Steve Nash gets a full another year, 2 years, basically, the rest of this year and next year. Because think about it. I heard on the pregame from our guy Carino on the fan for the Nets radio, they had a different starting lineup over 50% of Steve Nash's games. Like, are you kidding me? In any other scenario, we are giving this guy the benefit of the doubt. Oh, his star is this, his star is that. It didn't matter. He had no consistency. He had no chance really to succeed here. But here's where it comes in. Was he part of the problem? Perhaps not. Was he the solution? Absolutely not. Right? So the GM and owner say, we want to save our ass a little bit longer. The GM especially want to save his job a little bit longer. Well, let's get rid of the coach and see if something else happens. Because if this next coach don't work, then my ass is going to be out of here too. And that's exactly what this move is. And it's not because of anything that Steve Nash did terribly. It's about what he failed to do like really great, if that makes sense. He didn't excel this team up in any way, where we used to constantly see coaches like Kenny Atkinson, Quinn Snyder, who might be in the running for this job, get a lot out of nothing, get a lot out of a little. Steve Nash wasn't able to do that. So was it his fault entirely? Absolutely not. But the Nets had no choice because of all the disaster, and they have to save face a little bit, give themselves another chance. But if you really broke this down, what he did in year one, what he did in year two before Kevin Durant got hurt, there's a lot of positives in there too that now are just going to live on the side of a highway somewhere in Brooklyn in traffic. So that's the Steve Nash story basically here. And it's over before we knew it.
I just want to say one more thing really quickly here, and then Cody wants to jump in, or if we want to move on. But I find it very funny too, because Joe Tsai is culpable in this as well. Sean Marks is as culpable as anybody else, even though it felt like, like I said, okay, we're going to put all this, and a lot of it does go on Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and that's why I'm never going to give them a free pass for any of this. But I find it funny because Kevin Durant said in the summer, fire Sean Marks and fire Steve Nash or I'm gone. And at first, Joe Tsai was like, yeah, relax, Kevin. And then they fired Steve Nash 7 games into the season, 8 games into the season off a win. I don't know if you guys, for anybody that's listening that hasn't been watching a lot of Nets basketball, can either of you guys tell me what Kevin Durant's averaging this year?
I'm just going to say 30.
32, I believe.
32 and a half points a game, putting up some of the greatest shooting numbers we've seen from him in his entire career. So I got to give Kevin Durant credit. He is still him. He is still top 3 player on the planet, one of the most valuable. I'd probably put him 3rd most valuable player on the planet, and I'd probably put him 2nd or 3rd most talented. So, I mean, if we're talking about Jokic and Luka as the most valuable, KD's probably right there, tied with Giannis. And in terms of sheer talent, I'd put him probably behind Giannis, maybe number 2. I think LeBron is still top 5, but I think it is now visible that he has taken a small step back. But yeah, Durant's playing out of his fucking gourd. So Joe Tsai said, okay, maybe I want to rethink this.
Right.
I don't want to lose Kevin Durant. So Steve Nash, okay, thanks for joining. You knew at some point you were walking the plank. It all depended on was how long that plank was going to be. So Kevin Durant's the only thing that's keeping this team afloat right now. A little bit of Kyrie. He's played pretty well. He's shot very well. But for the most part, without Kevin Durant, this team would probably not win 25 games.
It feels like we've been saying that for 2 years now. Like, if not for Kevin Durant playing at this level, what would this team look like? And then we got that glimpse last year when he went down and they went to, from like Pete said, 1 seed to a borderline play-in team. But that's what makes all this so tough is what you're alluding to, Pat. Like, I don't know how you felt in the moment when they brought Harden over, but I've always been on the side of if you feel like you've got a chance, if you have a window, you make every move possible to maximize that small chance that you have, that window. And again, foot on the line, go back to before that. They beat the hell out of the Bucks. They won by like 45 games after, I believe, sweeping series 1, up 2-0 in the next series. 2 guys go down. So like a big part of sports, and you guys know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, it's some of that luck, some of that injury luck. How does the ball bounce? Steve Nash got dealt a bad hand. They had their injuries. They had a lot of things go wrong. Part of it is when you saddle yourself to a guy like Kyrie Irving, who's as unpredictable as they come. Bill Simmons has been saying this for like a year plus now too. You left a stable organization like the Warriors to go hitch your wagon to Kyrie Irving. Kevin Durant's a guy that's on the threshold of being a top 10 player all time if he adds a championship to his resume or something. And he goes and hitches his saddle to Kyrie. And again, there's a lot of bad luck that went along with it. There's also a lot of bad decisions that went along with it. It's just really tough. And I'd love to see if Steve Nash gets another chance somewhere, what he would do with it. Or was he maybe a bigger problem and maybe he's a good X's and O's guy as a point guard, but maybe he's not a leader of men. And maybe that's what this team needs. And maybe that's Atkinson or an Udoka or whoever they choose to bring in. But geez, it just felt like you said, Pat, what could go wrong has gone wrong with this Nets team. Some of it their own doing. Some of it's just you can't help it. It's bad luck, and especially at bad times with injuries.
Yeah. Mute. Pat, you're on mute.
Sorry.
All good.
I did it. I muted, I double muted, then I unmuted, then muted again.
It looked like whatever you were saying was dope, though. Got to be honest.
Well, I'll shoot it from the hip again. And I think the fact that I hated the Harden trade from the start because I didn't trust James Harden. One, I think he's a lifetime postseason loser. I've said that numerous times. And I felt like he was going to fuck with the chemistry, which is exactly what happened. And can you blame Kyrie Irving maybe just as equally for that? Of course you can. However, I thought that when they got Katie and Kyrie, those were the 2 superstars they needed, and you build around them. And what do they already have in-house? A great rim-protecting center that can score from basically anywhere inside 10 feet. And you had a young shooter who's capable of knocking down 4 threes a game when he hits his peak in Karis LeVert. And you fucking traded both of them for James Harden. And you traded 3 first-round picks and the 4 swaps. So that's why that pick really pissed me off. I said, they're literally just shooting their load for this here to make it happen within a 2-year period because they know if it doesn't work in 2 years, it's probably going to get blown up. And it's exactly what's happening. The Nets, and that's why I'm so hard on Nick Claxton, because if they had Jared Allen playing center, this team would be so much better. And if they still had Karis LeVert, that's one more shooter rather than wagering your future on James Harden. Because now what they have from that is Seth Curry, fucking Ben Simmons, who we can go off on a tangent on him. I'll never buy that he's going to be all-star caliber ever again in his career. And you got Andre Drummond, who you've now given away again or walked in free agency. So I have despised every single move this organization has made now basically for the past 3 years. Every single one of them. I hate every one of them. And that's why I hate them so much, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah. Like you can argue that Sean Marks pushed more wrong buttons than Steve Nash. Steve Nash just omitted buttons, right? Like he just didn't push stuff. When people are saying, why aren't you trying this? Why aren't you trying that? Why aren't you mixing up this lineup? He was just kind of doing things, right? Not that he had, again, the best hand, whatever. he just kind of wasn't doing much. There wasn't really a Steve Nash imprint on the team, but the buttons that Marks pushed over and over again were incorrect. The biggest one too that just pisses me off is the DeAndre Jordan thing. Talk about making your bed. All of a sudden, you got a 7-footer that can't move in that bed with you right now, too. That DeAndre Jordan thing was horrendous. They looked at Jared Allen and said, we're going to have to pay him. It's going to be tough. Why don't we get rid of him? And we can bring back a solid veteran like DeAndre Jordan, who hadn't been good in like 4 years. He's been a statue for 6 years now, but 4 years from that point, that was one of the worst parts of it, too. So Mark's got to see his own mortality in the mirror here. He got to think that if this season doesn't turn around and he don't have a monster offseason, that he's gone after next, right? Like, he'll have his chance to bring in one more coach, 100%. He'll have his chance to go at this offseason again, and then who knows? It might be it for Sean Marks, a guy who has been just loved by the media for so long now, for probably 6-7 years now. He's been a darling of NBA media, talking about the trades and the picks and the 20 to 40 round picks in the draft, whatever. He's been money on those, and now it's just nothing. So very, very weird. Let's do one more thing here on the Nets quick before we move on. We got to move on to the next topic here. Who are the coaches that stand out to you guys? There's been some that have been rumored. Sean Marks said that none of those rumors are true or official or whatever he said to get around it for the moment. So any coach that you guys like in particular, or maybe if you don't have one name in mind, a certain style of coach that you think the team needs?
The style's got to be Udoka, but I don't know. Like, I mean, how much sense does that make, right? A team with all this turmoil and question marks, like, hey, let's bring in this guy who just got fired for the turmoil that he left behind in Boston. Like, let's bring him over to Brooklyn because I'm sure that'll work. But if not for that, yeah, a defensive-minded coach makes sense there. But I don't think it should be him because of the things I just pointed to. A guy like Quinn Snyder, who's proven, who's done it, who's like, you need kind of like how the Mets brought in Buck Showalter, albeit how it ended. That's what you need. If you're a team who's going to go for it, go get a guy who's done it before. Don't bring in some guy new who hasn't been there. Don't bring in Louis Rojas. Go get Buck Showalter. Go get your guy. Quinn Snyder's probably the one who sticks out most to me.
I totally agree with Cody. I want Quinn. I wanted the Lakers to hire him in the offseason because he's a guy that has embraced the modern day game. He's embraced the analytics. I mean, you saw the type of team the Jazz became under him. They led, what were they, number one, if not number two, if not number one, most three-pointers taken, attempted, and made in the league for the last couple of seasons. The way they ran their offense, I thought this would be a great fit if he comes here. And he also, I feel like he's not taking any shit. Like the way Quinn Snyder looks, you're gonna cross him. I feel like he'd put a cigarette out on your neck. So, and Ime Udoka's like, he looks like he's a fucking intimidating guy too. I wouldn't want to cross him. But again, this is just, I saw somebody tweet today, wow, the Nets are really at least committing to the bid of making this look like as much of a full-fledged circus as they can. You're going to bring in a guy who was suspended for basically, half the season?
No, the whole season, right?
The whole season? He's suspended for the whole season. And hey, let's bring him to Brooklyn. Yeah, come on over.
We're walking here, you know what I'm saying?
The Cirque du Soleil starts tomorrow night. You're the fucking lead act.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's funny, though, because Quinn Snyder and Kenny Atkinson always had a lot of similarities as coaches, one of which being that Quinn Snyder's like the more handsome on coke version of Kenny Atkinson. And I love it so much. Like, it never looks like Quinn Snyder sleeps. Like, it just doesn't, which is fine. It's kind of what you want in your head coach. Sometimes you kind of want your coach to sleep. I think Tibbs needs more sleep, if you ask me. I think he should probably watch less film and sleep a little bit more. But he's not going to do that. That's okay. Like, Kenny Atkinson has that look like where he's rugged. He's just out there grinding away possessions like he's on the court. Quinn Snyder's the same way. He's a little more suave with the hair. Might fit good in Brooklyn. I loved Quinn Snyder all along in Utah. And that's a classic case of like, he peaked out the Utah Jazz. He got them to their peak. They clearly weren't a team with the players they had to make it to a finals and win a finals. He got everything out of them. Let's see if he can do that with some serious superstars now, right? He did it with a star, 2 stars if you count Gobert. Give him, Cody says, no, not a star. He's a star. I purposely didn't say superstar. He is a star, though, I guess, right?
He's a loser.
He's a loser. Cringe as hell, too. But let's see if he can do it with a superstar. So I love the Quinn Snyder idea, and we'll see where else they go. Or if they go Jacques Vaughn rest of the year, they easily could go Jacques Vaughn rest of the year, which would be interesting because he's been there. he's been a part of it the entire time. You don't want to get a fresh voice in there. That seems like the whole point here, to get a fresh voice in there. But that, I guess we shall see. All right, we got to move off from the Nets here. Let's move on to another topic, because we talked about a lot of stuff from the NBA there with the Brooklyn Nets and all the things that they've been through now over the last couple of years. What I want to talk about now is the NBA right now, because there's a lot of things happening here and a lot of players really showing out at a special level right now. There are 17 players in the NBA who are averaging 25 plus points per game. I forget the exact number, but I think in years past, it was something like, 6 or 7, right? Like it went up a huge deal, and people are putting up buckets. Now, yes, of course, most teams have played between 5 and 7 games. So not a big sample size. A lot of those numbers are going to go down. Like, can Luka average 36 per game? Possibly, but he'll probably end up more like 32. Is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going to average 31 a game? Probably not, right? But these players are showing out. So I just want to bring this thought to you guys and talk about the talent across the league here for a minute, because it's not just the guys averaging 25. It is the young guys as well. It's Tyrese Maxey, Cade Cunningham, and Anthony Edwards, and Paolo Banchero, all averaging 23 points per game. Young dudes getting after it. Is this the most talented we've seen this league ever, perhaps? Like, is this the deepest we've seen the league? And is the star power spread enough to the point where you can really turn on like any team and be interested in 1 to 3 players on every single team right now? I've personally been thrilled with what I'm seeing. Are you guys feeling some of those same positive vibes around the NBA with the depth of talent right now? Pat, I'll go to you first.
I mean, I love it. I'm more locked into the NBA than I've ever been in my entire life. So like now that we know, I feel like, because we see how much star power there is, where you see, although inconsistent, what certain guys could do. Like Anthony Edwards could go for 40 every single night. And I feel like most people wouldn't have him in the top 10 yet, but I think he could easily be there by next year. He could easily be top 5. I think he's that damn good, but he's just, he's inconsistent. I think because I've bet on a lot of his points prop here the last week and a half. I feel like he's alternated like 35, then teens, then 30, and then teens again. So you don't know what you're going to get from him on any given night. So there definitely is a lot of star power, but I'm going to hit back here. I just think with the era we're in, the analytics, the 3 get shot more than ever. There's more points now more than ever. Maybe there's just more points in the game now. There's more points to go around. So whereas, the scoring champion is always usually in the low 30s, but after that, there's a pretty big drop off. There's not that. Like you said, you have more players averaging 25 points per game or more than ever before. I just think that's a product of there being way more points, way more offense. So I love watching the NBA. I don't want to sound like an old man here, but I feel like it's just a product of there's just more offense.
That's funny, Pat, because I was literally thinking, at least you didn't sound like the old man saying, "Oh, they don't play defense anymore." Like I think there is more talent to go around. I think you see it on any given night when any team could beat another, because you've got 1 or 2 guys on these lower end teams who can go for 25 plus on a given night. Like, it's kind of slowly been increasing, I think, talent wise. You see it with like the bench players, say, who all of a sudden you're like, he's got that in his bag. Like, this guy's the 8th guy off the bench right now. How does he have that in his bag? But they all seem to. So maybe there are more points to go around, Pat. Maybe there's just the analytics. But I do think the league's increasing, at least offensively, talent-wise, because you see these guys that are like looking on YouTube and they're following these different players and just adding and adding and adding and taking from them and adding to their arsenal. And they're just harder to stop. Like, we watch every night probably, right? NBA, we'd say. It's not that there's a lack of defense. It's not that there's a lack of effort. It's that there's a hand in his face, but he's still knocking down that 25-footer or that turnaround mid-range. It's just not stoppable, some of these shots. So I think that shows in the any given night, any team can win, which is what makes the NBA so hard to predict and bet on. But yeah, I think there's an influx of talent, and I think we're just continuing to see it, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, it's probably a mixture of both of what you guys said. So some statistics for you guys, though, based off what you were talking about, Pat, with pace of play is something that you would think of, right? With more possessions, more shots, etc. this year right now is ranked 18th in NBA history on fastest pace. So it's not like this is some abnormal pace where they're getting way more shots up than ever, but the shots I think are just more efficient, right? Like that's part of it. So maybe the talent that we're speaking of is a combination of the actual players along with the coaching staffs and general managers and front offices getting the most out of these players, right? Like there are players now who we can look at who aren't very good. They're very average perhaps. And if they go for 19 points, it's like, oh, they must have just got a little hot from three. Like Royce O'Neal hit what, 4 or 5 threes in the game on Tuesday night. Like, and all of a sudden he's in the high teens, 20 points. He averages probably 7 or 8 a game, 11 a game at most. Like that may be the variation too. They're getting more out of the lesser players, but I mean, some of the statistics show here that the best players are getting the best shots too. And maybe it's just an effort from all these teams saying, we are so much better. We are so much more efficient when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander handles a possession, which is why he's one of the highest ISO usage players in the NBA and is damn good at it. And his shooting's getting better. So from an actual possession standpoint and a shots per game standpoint, this isn't abnormal. It's not even higher than 2019-20 season, 2018-19 season. Those are both higher at the moment as well. So maybe it's a mixture of both the front offices and coaches meshing with the upgraded talent and shot making, and it's just more efficient. And that's why I'm not one to ever come out here and say like, oh, like no one tries on defense anymore. I think they try pretty hard on defense. I watch a lot of NBA. Cody, like you said, we watch more NBA than 98% of people out there probably. And I'm watching people compete on defense constantly. So I don't know what people are talking about all the time that people aren't playing defense. I think it's just so hard to play defense right now. Part of it's some of the rules in the league as well. But, you know, people say, oh, you're why don't you just press Steph Curry 90 feet or whatever, however long the court is. I don't even know. Like what? The guy runs more than anybody ever in the history of the NBA. Go ahead, press him. Yeah, he's just going to give it to Draymond. He's going to give it to Jordan Poole. He's going to give it to Wiggins, and then he's going to sprint down the court, and your best defender is going to be fried by the middle of the second. So it's like, what do you do defensively? It's like impossible. But to talk about some of the guys who specifically do stand out, we obviously touched on some of them. I do want to talk about some of the old guard who has showed up this year. We talked about Kevin Durant earlier. I think one guy who really deserves a shout out here is Damian Lillard, a team that many people didn't care about going into the season. Yes, he just got banged up. He's going to be out for a week or so, but he should be fine. Dame Lillard absolutely went off the first 5 games of the season. 31 points, taking 10 threes a game, shooting 39%, which is ridiculous. And I mean, we all thought this guy was going to be fried on a downturn, and he showed up and absolutely balled out. So it's not just the Anthony Edwards and the Paolo Bancheros who are shocking people this year. It's also the Siakams who keep getting better. It's also Dame Lillard who didn't leave yet, right? Like it's a full-fledged mix of these young guys who are showing up and saying, yo, I'm going to get a bucket. I don't care if it's KD, Draymond, Gobert. I don't care who's guarding me. It doesn't matter. I can do this. As well as these old guys saying, hey, youngin, I can still do this. So it's a really beautiful combo right now. I'll tune into any NBA game and be interested in multiple things.
I like that, and I agree with the shout out for Dame. He's been fantastic, and I understand why people hate on him for not leaving Portland, even though it's like, dude, like, don't you want to have one shot at winning a ring? But dude, some guys are loyal for life. Some guys, are interwoven into that community. It feels like that way with him in Portland. So give him credit, and they got off to a hot start, man. I mean, that would be one of the surprises of the year if they're able to make it to the play-in tournament. I don't see why they wouldn't even at least give it a go, especially if you have Lillard. I know that's kind of like they've accepted the fact that they can't build and give him another superstar like another CJ again. But I mean, again, at least they're getting off to a hot start here. So we'll see how long it lasts, but it's been fun to watch so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they got Gary Payton coming back. But it's funny, Pat, because I've said this before. If Dame leaves, then the Twitter feed is there's no loyalty anywhere anymore. One of the last true ones. Like, it doesn't matter what he or anyone does. There's going to be a reason to complain. So I like that he stayed. A guy who kind of went against the grain in that aspect. I don't think they're going to get enough to get a championship, but he's been fun to watch. He's always been fun to watch, and they're 5-1. They're top of the West, surprisingly, and Who knows? They should be a play-in type team, and I'll tell you, I think they're better than someone like the Lakers, who probably is the type of team that's looking towards the 9-10 seed. So why not? And I don't think anyone's going to want to see Dame Lillard in a one-game play-in.
Right? No, you don't.
No, absolutely. And I love some of the young stars they have on this team now. I think Anthony Simons is absolutely electric, dude. He is Hop City. I mean, he fucking jumps out of a rocket every time he leaves the floor. So watching him, love me some Jeremy Grant. And I think Nurkic still has some room to grow. So we've just slowly talked ourselves now into like being Blazers fans along with Cody. I'm like the A1, I feel like, to your A Pelicans fan this season.
Oh, man. Pelicans, bro. Sick.
You're on the Pels too, right, Pete?
How could you not be? They're so
all right. So you and me are both B1 and B2. Cody's A.
There you go. Yeah, they're so fun. I mean, also like Desmond Bane, like he's off the charts this year. And someone you mentioned with the Blazers, Shaedon Sharp, bro. You know, that's one of those things where I listened to every scouting report. I watched his high school tapes. I watched everything I could on YouTube. I'm like, I don't know what to say about this guy. All these people who apparently have access to him and his agent and coaches are all like, I don't know, maybe like he's a little bit, who knows if he wants to be here, if he think he's just going to chuck shots. Like, and then he showed up and is just crashing to the rim, throwing down insane dunks, hitting tough shots. I'm like, wow, this is one that people were flabbergasted on how to scout him. And now I get it, because some people were just tantalized with the talent, and he has shown up as well. But that's great stuff. I'm so excited to continue to talk basketball all year long as we get more and more into this basketball season, get more data, more information, watch more games. It's going to be super fun.